Dinghai Fusheng Records. Chapter 135. Confinement. Black chi flowed through the blue light of the earth vein. Chen Xing's body glowed as it lay on a sea of the devil god's blood. The earth veins all around him reached towards the center, and in the midst of the sea of blood, he lay there all alone, like a single lonesome offering. If you are by my side, you will not be taken away by the divine vein to return to the cycles of reincarnation, a voice said. From this point on, you do not have to worry. Fu Jian was clad in a set of armor, and he had a large sword strapped to his back as he sat unconcernedly at the edge of the sea of blood. Chen Xing immediately sat up, bobbing up and down amidst the sea, as he looked nervously towards Fu Jian. Fu Jian's eyes were already a crimson red, and an evil-filled smile lifted the corners of his mouth. "Where is this?" Chen Xing asked guardedly. "Huanmo Palace," Fu Jian said in reply, before he unreservedly studied Chen Xing, who was still in his soul state. His gaze landed on his right hand, and he remarked, as expected, "We've met before. Did you use the Dinghai pearl to turn back time?" "Who are you?" Chen Xing asked. "You're not Fu Jian." An odd expression crossed Fu Jian's face. That expression looked a little similar to the face of Xu, back when he had appeared in Karasha, Jiankang, and out at sea. "You are Xu." Chen Xing's voice trembled. Fu Jian replied, "Tell me, what exactly happened 3 years ago?" Chen Xing pressed one hand down on the surface of the sea, pushing himself up. Fu Jian continued, "If you don't want to speak, that's fine. It will probably not differ much from what Gu has been thinking. Want to see where you are staying?" And as he spoke, Fu Jian made a gesture, and the scenery of Huanmo Palace faded away, revealing the palace of Chang'an enshrouded in darkness. The two of them appeared atop a platform, which faced the vast drill grounds outside of Viang Palace. A dense, dark mass of Qin troops stretched endlessly out in a neat formation on the drill grounds. Chen Xing. The heart lamp was still in Chen Xing's body. The moment that he had left the earth vein, that flicker of flame had returned to his 307 po. "Look at what is in front of you," Fu Jian said. "This is the foundation of the legacy that Gu will build for eternity." Chen Xing took a half step back, studying Fu Jian's silhouette. Since he had already turned into a spirit, he could, just like how Wang Zi had once upon a time, flee at any time. He tested out activating the heart lamp, but thousands of li away, across ranges of mountains and leagues of ocean, a weak power responded to him. In that instant, Chen Xing saw the study of the exorcism department. The igniting of their mana was starting to call to Xiangshu. "Do not even think about escaping," Fu Jian said darkly. "As soon as you leave Gu's side, you will be pulled away by the divine veins, and you will be sent back to the cycles of reincarnation. Even if my Hunpo were to leave, the heart lamp would be left behind, would it not?" Chen Xing asked in reply. "Doesn't that fit in perfectly with what you want?" Fu Jian chuckled coldly, and he replied, "You are very calm." Chen Xing studied Fu Jian, and dimly, he guessed at one part of Xiangshu's plans, all those important pieces of information, possibly intentionally or accidentally, scattered into corners, that floated between the two worlds. Xu had once also planned to take the wielder of the heart lamp as his new vessel. And after Xiangshu's identity as the Dinghai pearl had come to light, Xu had tossed Chen Xing aside, changing his plans to focus on Xiangshu, whose body was formed from the artifact. In the end, when he was unable to gain either, he backed off and chose Fu Jian instead. In that case, to Xu, the best vessel was, in order, Xiangshu, then Chen Xing, and finally Fu Jian. But this devil king in front of him was different from the Xu that he knew. Something must have changed somewhere. What was that change? "Your companions," Fu Jian said slowly. He hadn't turned his head back, but he had sensed the flow of spiritual qi when Chen Xing had ignited his mana. "I imagine, are trying to figure out a way to save you right now." And as he spoke, with a slight raise of his hand, a blurred scene of a faraway location appeared around them. That was the exorcism department located in distant Jiankang. He had actually used the flow of the earth veins to watch the exorcism department's every move. Chen Xing was instantly shocked. That meant that, no matter what they did beforehand, their each and every move was under Chu's eye. But the exorcists seemed to have long since made their preparations, because a layer of light was laid over the structures of the department, blocking Chu's spying. Xiang Shu had long since predicted this, and had made the appropriate preparations. He had probably discussed it all with Xian before as well. No wonder. Chen Xing thought of when Xian had shielded the exorcism department from any spiritual qi, causing a large swathe of the eastern mountains to grow brown and lifeless. In the beginning, he thought that Xian had done so because it was easy to manage, but now that he thought about it, the most important bit had been to hide themselves from Chu's spying. Perhaps, from the moment that they had run into Chu on the ocean, Xiang Shu had grown wary. An anti-spirit magical barrier, Fu Jian said. Why don't you guess at what they're currently discussing? Chen Xing did not reply. Thousands of li distant, Jiankang, the exorcism department. Xiang Shu was glowing with the golden light of their mana igniting, before it suddenly disappeared, and he opened his eyes in the study. Xian, Feng Qianjun, Xiao Shan, Tuoba Yan, Xin Yuanping, and Wen Che were all sitting in their respective seats, watching Xiang Shu unblinkingly. The Huanmo Palace is in Chang'an, Xiang Shu said solemnly. I managed to see it, but I could not sense what Chen Xing wanted to say. Aside from that, there is an army of almost 400,000 gathering. I imagine they will be used as sacrifices. Xin Yuanping explained, the igniting of mana can build a mental connection between you and the great exorcist, which is where the desires are aligned part comes from. Xiang Shu frowned. But from the beginning to the end, Chen Xing has seemed to be able to sense, every now and then, what I was thinking. There has still been a small deviation from the plan, Xian frowned. Why was it little Shidi who got taken away? That's not right. It's very logical, Wen Che said. Even if you were the Dinghai Pearl once upon a time, the you right now is no longer useful to Chu. Xiang Shu was in disbelief. In the plan that they had made before, Xiang Shu should have been the one who Chu took away, while Chen Xing remained in the exorcism department. The divine and earthly veins should have corrected their path to the right one, which was to say, since Xiang Shu had gone to Chu's side before, the same thing should have happened this time around. Why was it then, that things had changed this time? Feng Qianjun said, Tianka's Hanpo have already been captured, so there's no point in trying to assign the blame. What are we supposed to do next? We've got to make our preparations immediately. Xiang Shu's forehead was deeply furrowed. What they had discussed originally was this: when Chu took Xiang Shu away, he would still have the 9 words of incantation on him, so even if he was in a soul state, Chu would not be able to hurt him. Last time, when Chu activated the Tides of Eternity array to forcefully transfer his Hun, that had caused Xiang Shu great pain. But because in his heart, he still had a seed of flame from the heart lamp, that had protected his consciousness. As of now, after they had ignited their mana, and with the sigils that Xiang Shu had, he might even have had the chance, as a spirit, to force Chu into a fight, so as to whittle away at his strength. As for Chen Xing, he would forge the sword with the assistance of Xin Yuanping and the others. At the same time, he would also gather up the exorcists of the Jiangnan region to start a battle with Chu, sever the source of his resentment, and in the end, meet up with Xiang Shu on the battlefield, take back the 9 words, and deal him the final blow after he took spirit form to escape. The reason that they had hidden this from Chen Xing was because Xiang Shu was afraid that Chen Xing would not be willing to let him put himself at risk. And as soon as the two of them were separated, Chen Xing would still be able to use the ignition of mana, crossing a distance of thousands of li to perceive Xiang Shu's thoughts. After all, logically, only if Shu were to capture Xiangshu would he be able to put an end to the reforging of the divine sword. Chen Xing had the heart lamp, and Shu had an innate fear of it. Xiangshu said gravely, "Prepare to forge the sword." Everyone moved away on their own. When only Xin Yu and Ping was left, Xiangshu pondered for a moment, before he finally could not hold out any longer. Why? Why is it that when I use the ignition of mana, there is always a distance between Xing'er and I? Because you two have not actually achieved the level of being able to live and die together, Xin Yu and Ping said calmly. In your heart, you have always had a desire, that even if you were to sacrifice yourself, you would ensure that the great exorcist would live on. Wen Che flipped through the lone volumes lying around the study. Chen Xing had read them before, and an incomplete fragment of a scroll that he had edited fell out. On it was written the legend of his and Xin Yuanping's past. Chen Xing can sense many of your desires, Wen Che said mildly. The reason is because he has experienced so much, and he has already truly understood. He is not afraid of himself dying, nor is he afraid of you dying for him. If one of you dies, then the other one will face the reality of the situation calmly. That is what staying together through life and death, wholly offering up themselves to each other looks like. Living and dying together is something that has always been easier said than done. Mortals think that the difficulty of doing so lies in being able to sacrifice themselves, Wen Che said, a smile hovering about his mouth. That is truly a narrow-minded view. The true difficulty lies not in sacrificing your life for the others, but rather, trusting that he will also be willing to offer up his life in exchange. Look, you've been a protector for so long, and you do not see your own death as anything important. But when it comes to his death, you cannot bear but to fuss worriedly over it, and it troubles you endlessly. Isn't that the case? Xiangshu fell silent. He stood quietly in the study. Xin Yu and Ping smiled. That is why he is no longer afraid. In other words, today, whether it was you risking yourself, or him risking himself, you two would either live together or die together. What difference is there then? It was at this time that Tuoba Yan came again, bringing news from the north that had just arrived today. Murong Chong lost, Tuoba Yan said, but thankfully Shi Mokan arrived in time. Princess King He retreated safely, and is having a standoff with Fujian in Yuzhu. Murong Chong, as well as the Pingyang troops, lost their battle and were taken prisoner. In the Chang'an Imperial Palace, snow filled the air under the dark sky, bringing with it a coppery tang. Fujian sat high up on his throne, his literary officials and military commanders standing tall, while Murong Chong, covered in blood, knelt in the middle of the hall. Next to Fujian, to his right-hand side, stood the ashen-faced commander of the royal guards, Yuan Xin. To his left, after Wang Zi had left, another middle-aged man had appeared. The generals of the various tribes and the literary officials stared with unsettling gazes at that middle-aged scholar. That was Wang Meng, who had died and been revived again. He was an official of the Great Qin who had once conquered half the northern territories it currently held. Chen Xing walked a circle above the palace. He found that none of the living people were able to see him, and the only people who could sense him were Wang Meng, the Chu-possessed Fujian, as well as Yuan Xin, who had been changed by the devil god's blood. Chang'er, Fujian said solemnly, the bloody color of his eyes fading. In what aspects has Zhen mistreated you? Murong Chong's head and face were covered in blood. Under Fujian's mighty iron cavalry, the Pingyang troops had lost terribly, and tens of thousands of them had been killed. The rest of them had been captured as prisoners of war. Fujian had leveled the last obstacle that stood in the way of his southern campaign. He no longer paid any attention to Princess King He, instead deciding that after he doled out a severe punishment to Murong Chong today, he would command his troops to set out and crush the Great Jin. Chen Xing walked back and forth across the hall. He first studied Murong Chui, before he made a funny face in front of Fu Rong. Wang Meng. A hush had fallen over the hall. Everyone was guessing at how exactly Fu Jian would go about dealing with Murong Chang. In this tense atmosphere, Chen Xing walked to Murong Chang's side and whispered into his ear, "Hurry up and get up. I'll lend you a hand, let's stab him to death right here and now." But this was nothing more than a slight breeze across Murong Chang's ear. "You're a spirit. He won't be able to hear your words." When the voice spoke, Chen Xing froze, before looking upwards, only to see Wang Meng looking expressionlessly back at him from a distance of over 10 steps away. He had already been turned into a drought fiend, and his lips did not move, yet he was able to let Chen Xing hear his voice. "Oh." Chen Xing nodded in apparent seriousness. He just wanted to find something to do, and cause a spot of mischief while he was at it. But Murong Chang suddenly lifted his head to study Fu Jian. "You aren't His Majesty," Murong Chang murmured. "His Majesty has been possessed by an evil being." "Who exactly are you?" As soon as he spoke, everyone in the hall was immediately shocked. This was what the officials of the court of the Great Qin had thought to themselves for several years, ever since the great Chanya Shulakong had quelled the drought fiend chaos in Chang'an. What Murong Chang had done was to say the truth out loud right in front of all of them. The hall was deathly silent, and obvious fear shone from the faces of the officials. Murong Chang had once been someone who Fu Jian treated very dearly, but with the accusation he had made, the hall was immediately filled with an atmosphere of terror. Fu Jian rose from his throne. He strode slowly to Murong Chang, lowering his head to study him. At that moment, Chen Xing was sitting beside Murong Chang with his legs crossed, and he too lifted his head, studying Fu Jian warily. In that instant, a familiar expression appeared in Fu Jian's eyes. Not only did Murong Chang know it, but even Chen Xing was familiar with it. Where had he seen it before? But there was no time for him to think deeply about it before Fu Jian said, "Bring him to the rear palace, and have the men stand guard over him at all hours." "Who exactly are you?" Chen Xing asked, frowning. But Fu Jian did not reply. He simply added gravely, "Tomorrow, early in the morning, the army will set off to Luoyang. After the supplies are inspected, prepare to head south to start the war." The officials quivered with fear as they dispersed. Fu Jian turned to leave, leaving Wang Meng standing quietly on the platform. Over the past several days, Chen Xing had tried several times to leave, and had discovered that he was able to leave Fu Jian's side temporarily. It was as if there was a wave of energy coming from Fu Jian that enveloped the entirety of the palace in Chang'an, because at least in places where he couldn't be seen, Chen Xing hadn't run into any major issues. But when he was a certain distance away, he could very clearly feel the compelling force from the divine vein. That distance, according to Chen Xing's observations, was about a li in diameter. That was the area that Fu Jian's devil god's power could expand to. "Who exactly are you?" Chen Xing asked Fu Jian, sweeping like a gust of wind into the study. Fu Jian was sitting in the imperial study, and if he hadn't known beforehand that Fu Jian had already become Chu's temporary vessel, Chen Xing might not have spotted any difference between the usual Fu Jian. The only change was that he seemed a little more grounded. "What do you think?" "Wielder of the heart lamp," Fu Jian asked seriously, "who do you think I resemble?" Chen Xing frowned. "What are you trying to do?" That sheen of blood red slowly reappeared in Fu Jian's eyes, and he studied Chen Xing unreservedly as he said, "You are not one of Gu's creations. If the Wisdom King and Beikaro were here, I might have some things to say to them. You, however, are simply an affair to be dealt with, and to me, you are as common as the artifacts of the divine land. How dare you question the devil god?" When he heard these words, Chen Xing knew that this was definitely Chu. The god of weapons consciousness had already taken control of Fu Jian, and was using him as a host. The heart that he had seen before, however, had already vanished. The heart was the vessel that held Chu's two souls. Where was it now? Chen Xing suddenly had a daring guess, but under Chu's gaze, he didn't keep talking. You want the heart lamp, is that right? Chen Xing asked darkly. Then why have you not yet done anything about it? Fu Jian chuckled coldly. Just you wait. There's no need to be too hasty, little scrap. It was at this moment that Murong Chui knocked on the door, before pushing it open and entering. Chen Xing turned his head, and Fu Jian's blood-red eyes turned back into those of the emperor of the human realm. Murong Chui began to report on the movements of the army and the condition of their supplies and gear. Chen Xing listened for a while, but did not hear any secrets, so he went through the wall of the study. He thought to himself that this was very convenient, he could now simply go right through walls. Murong Chong was currently lying in a bedroom, his armor scattered across the floor. His upper half was bare, and his hair was in disarray. A high fever racked him, and he still bore the wounds from a major battle. Blood splattered his body, and many spots across his pale chest and abdomen were infected. Dad, Mom, Murong Chong babbled in his sleep. Jaja. Murong Chong. Chen Xing called anxiously. Feng Guang Er. Wake up. Murong Chong pressed his lips tightly together, his face pale and bloodless. Chen Xing was afraid that he had also drunk the devil god's blood, and he wanted to shake him awake, only for his palm to pass right through his body. He won't be able to feel that, Wang Meng said from behind Chen Xing. Have you forgotten what Shifu taught us when he was alive? Chen Xing immediately turned and studied Wang Meng. Wang Meng continued, the living have time, while the dead have boundaries. I am dead, therefore I can converse with souls. If you wish to meet with Murong Chong, there is a way, but at least right now, he won't be able to hear you no matter what you say. Chen Xing remembered the last time that he had seen Wang Meng. That had been a brief passing glance in the Honglu underyuk, and back then, he and the exorcists had stolen the white tiger pennant from Wang Meng. Later, according to Xiang Shu, when he had gone to Mount Hua to seek out Chen Xing's teacher to investigate Iupiter, he had also run into Wang Meng. Back then, Shu had sent Wang Meng forth with a message, and had offered up his terms, asking Xiang Shu to go to the Huanmo Palace. That day, when they had met, what had Xiang Shu said to him? Shikshan. Chen Xing asked skeptically. You aren't being controlled by Chu. Wang Meng sat down by Murong Chong's bedside. He turned his head to look at Chen Xing. So that he could force me to completely lose consciousness and become a puppet like Yuan Shin? If he were to do that, who would help the great king of the great Qin, the co-ruler of all the northern lands, come up with battle stratagems in preparation for this battle? Chen Xing immediately let out a breath in relief and said, that's great, you're okay. You're still conscious. Wang Meng looked at Chen Xing. He thought for a moment, before saying, compared to the last time I saw you, little Shidi, you have grown quite a lot. These words are something that I've wanted to say for a long time. For a time, Chen Xing was filled with 100 conflicting emotions, and he couldn't help the grief that rose from it as he recalled the days they had spent together learning their arts. Why did you not leave? Chen Xing asked. You could evidently have come to find us, Shikshan. Wang Meng replied calmly, the Great Qin is my home. Why would I go to the south? While I was still alive, for the sake of repaying the debt of patronage that Fu Jian bestowed upon me, I helped him conquer the north. Countless of my compatriots died at my hands. Now that I think about it, it is quite reasonable for my punishment to be that I will never be able to rest peacefully after my death. Chen Xing fell silent, his brows deeply furrowed. Wang Meng continued, you must be very careful here in both speech and actions. His consciousness has now seeped into the earth veins, and has thus become one with the divine land. His focus is limited, and for a time, he will not have the extra energy to deal with you and I. But as soon as he sends out his troops, I'm afraid that he will discover our secret plots very soon. For the sake of proving to the officials that I have not lost my consciousness as a drought fiend, the god of weapons will not want to completely refine me for a time. But that is not the case for you. He may very well lock you up soon. Chen Xing said, I don't know why, but I keep feeling as if Fu Jian is still there. He's not completely under the control of the god of weapons just yet. Wang Meng said, as Chu is now, he only has 2 hun in this world. The 3rd hun has disappeared entirely. Use your cleverness and intelligence to think about it, Shidi. If he possessed Fu Jian's body, whose 3rd hun is that? Chen Xing immediately understood. Chu had taken over Fu Jian, and had suppressed his spiritual hun, which put his sense of self to sleep. He had also swallowed his earthly hun, thus gaining all of the memories that Fu Jian had while he was alive. But the 3rd hun had continued to exist undisturbed, so he had gained Fu Jian's joy, rage, grief, and happiness, his love, hatred, passions, and grudges, and had even gained the love that Fu Jian felt towards Murong Chang. Then he must be a little annoyed. From this point, Chen Xing seemed to have found one of Chu's weaknesses. From an emotional standpoint, the god of weapons has actually become a human. Wang Meng nodded. Chen Xing couldn't help recalling what Xiangshu had told him about their previous last moments, about what had happened to Xiangshu in the Huanmo Palace. That was to say, Xu didn't seem to have lied to Xiangshu. Since he was missing his 3rd hun, after he engulfed Xiangshu and took everything he had for himself, he had naturally also gained the love that Xiangshu felt towards him. These emotions were unable to be discarded, and to a devil god, that was no small obstacle. To Chen Xing, however, this also meant that even if Xu gained the strong power of the Dinghai Pearl, he would not have harmed him in the end. In some way, he was Xiangshu as well, and perhaps he would even have made good on their original promise. Wang Meng said, there is not much time left. What other plans do you have? I imagine that with Xia in there, he's definitely realized that this is a trap the god of weapons has laid out. Unless you were willing, there is no way you would have been brought here. Chen Xing said, I truly did not know what was going on before this, but I trust my companions. Shikshan, what is the god of weapons trying to do now? He requires resentment, Wang Meng replied. Wang Hai took the Tian Luo fan away, and it ended up in your hands, so even the resentment that it had gathered was exorcised as well. The god of weapons craves slaughter and death, and as soon as this battle of hundreds of thousands of men begins, that will provide him with enough resentment. He will then be able to refine you on the battlefield and gain your heart lamp. Chen Xing said, but he already has a vessel. To him, that is not nearly enough, Wang Meng said. He then reached out a finger and pressed it gently to the back of Chen Xing's hand. Plus, notice this. Have you still not realized? Chen Xing lifted his hand subconsciously, only to see that on the ring finger of his left hand, there was a ring glowing with a faint light. Chen Xing, this. Wang Meng said, I've observed him several times, and have noticed that his focus has always been on your hand, but he did not say anything. I imagine that he doesn't wish for you to realize that. Is this ring some important object to him? Chen Xing looked down, studying the tied ring on his hand. He remembered what Xiangshu had told him. In that last moment 3 years ago, after the Dinghai pearl broke, he had pushed the ring in the pearl onto Chen Xing's hand, but after they returned to the past, Chen Xing had never ended up finding it. And now, in his spirit form, it had finally appeared. Why didn't he snatch it right away? Chen Xing asked. As of now, you are a spirit, Wang Meng said. He has no way to interact directly with you, and the only way he can steal it from you is if he were to let out his 2 hun as well, so that both of you were in spirit form. But as soon as Chu's hun leave his body, he would have no need for that. As long as he ate you, he would be able to gain the heart lamp and this ring at the same time. I don't know how to use it, Chen Xing frowned. But this is indeed very important. Which is why, Wang Meng said, "You must do your best to keep yourself safe." "I've got nothing left but my 307 po," Chen Xing said, torn between laughing and crying. "I don't even have a physical form, how will I protect myself? I originally wanted to try and wake Murong Chang." "Wait. Shikshan, do you have a way to make him hear my voice?" Wang Meng replied, "You've studied for so long. Have you even forgotten how souls meet the living?" And saying this, he used his finger to sketch out a sigil. Chen Xing grinned. "Through dreams." Wang Meng was just about to press the sigil to Chen Xing's forehead, only for Chen Xing to say, "Shikshan, you will be willing to help me, isn't that right?" Wang Meng replied, "Promise me that in the end, you will definitely expel the god of weapons from Fujian's body." Chen Xing startled at that. Wang Meng said earnestly, "Even if he were to die, the emperor of a dynasty should die in a manner befitting his station. He was my majesty for one day, and he will remain my majesty forever." And saying this, Wang Meng slapped Chen Xing's forehead. Chen Xing, in spirit form, immediately collapsed and sank into Murong Chang's body. A heavy snow fell from the sky, and Murong Chang stood at the foot of Chi Le Chuan. There were no tents, nor were there any shepherds. He looked up at the white vastness of the Yin Mountains. "Murong Chang!" Chen Xing shouted amidst the snow. "Murong Chang!" In the darkness, Chen Xing held a lantern in his hand. The heart lamp had appeared once more, and was driving away the endless darkness. Behind him appeared a boundless landscape of blooming peach blossoms, which followed behind Chen Xing as he came forward. The peach blossom grove kept expanding outwards, and the snow of Chi Le Chuan swiftly retreated, forming a clear boundary between the spring day and the winter night. "Chen Xing!" Murong Chang turned his head, and he saw Chen Xing. Am I not far from death? Is this a dream?" "That's right," Chen Xing said. "I have already turned into a spirit, even though my physical body hasn't died yet. This isn't important. My Shikshan used a spell to make me appear in your dream. I have some things to tell you. You must wake and go back. Xiang Shu and the rest of them are already gathering their troops, and are preparing to face off against Fujian. I need you to help me out, this is very important." Murong Chang turned to study Chen Xing. Chen Xing frowned, thought for a moment, and said to him, "Help me find the whereabouts of that devil heart." Murong Chang replied, I will do my best, but I'm afraid that he will no longer." Chen Xing stood in the warm sunlight, saying to Murong Chang out on the snowy fields, "It will work. His feelings towards you have never disappeared for all this time." Murong Chang turned his head, and he nodded bitterly. "Go back, Ba," Chen Xing said. "Wake up quickly." Chen Xing lifted the heart lamp in his hand, and its light shone forth. Under the power of that light, Murong Chang's dream broke up and scattered into pieces. Murong Chang used his arm to block that strong light. His body turned into dancing snowflakes, swept away by the wind, and he vanished. Chen Xing looked to the left and right, before putting away the heart lamp. His own dream was still here, how was he supposed to leave? But it was just at that very moment that a man walked out of the dream. The man's upper body was bare, and his long green skirt embroidered with golden sigils reached to the ground. He walked barefoot through the peach blossom grove, watching Chen Xing. "You," Chen Xing was tongue-tied. "Aren't you that Kong something? Why are you here?" "Kong Xian." That man was the same one who he had once met in the world of dreams, as well as briefly on the sword-forging altar, the great Yaoguai who had sealed away Chu's third Hun. He frowned. "Your memory is truly quite terrible. Chen Xing, aren't you hiding away in dreams? Isn't this a dream?" Kong Xian asked reservedly. "Is that very odd?" Chen Xing said, "From Yuan Kun's dream, you." Kong Xian nodded. "Came into your dream." Chen Xing immediately grew nervous, and he said, you'd better hide well. Chu wants to find you no matter the cost. That's not an issue, Kongxian replied. Is the final battle about to begin? Has your divine weapon been forged? Chen Xing didn't know how Xiangshu's side was faring, so he could only shake his head. Kongxian continued, you must not let him use resentment to refine your heart lamp. This is the last ember of flame left in this world, and if the heart lamp were to go out, all hope would be lost. Chen Xing nodded. Keep yourself safe as well. Kongxian said, I cannot hide any longer. You must return to your body as quickly as you can. I will leave the world of dreams when the time is right, to give you all a helping hand. Remember, no matter what happens, do not be afraid of him. Go. And saying this, Kongxian lifted his fingers and flicked them against Chen Xing's forehead. With a loud shout, Chen Xing was ejected from the dream. End chapter.